This app has changed my life. Your search is over and I'm about to take you from zero to productivity master using Ticktick. Once upon a time, a young boy was overwhelmed by his tasks. He scribbled them on scraps of paper and procrastinated on the important things, never sure on what he should be doing next. He flew across the wasteland forest by the seat of his pants, darting from one thing to the next like a magical dragonfly. But one night, mid-flight, he bumped into a wise old owl who leaned over and gently whispered to him, "Hoo-hoo! Listen here, you little gimp. Stop procrastinating like a little child that's had too many Skittles and sort your life out and download Ticktick, or I'll break your legs." The moment the young boy downloaded the app, he started to feel the procrastination demons leaving his spirit, and the goblins of the wasteland forest were banished, never to be seen again. He returned to the village and was celebrated as king. Heartwarming. Now, not to surprise you here, but in that story, I am actually the owl. And you are the gimp of the forest if you don't download Ticktick. Thought I was going to say that I was the little boy, didn't you? So in all seriousness, you should watch my productivity series on how this all fits in, because the app that you use is not the solution to your productivity problems. Watching my series is the solution to your productivity problems, but this is the best app that you could be using. It's the basic 2 rungs of the productivity pyramid, and any of the higher order stuff is just going to crumble without a solid foundation. So we want 0 friction to doing the tasks. We don't want a complicated, needy app that takes more time to maintain than actually doing your tasks. I should also say this is not a sponsored video. We don't do sponsored videos because we value our creative freedom. This is coming from the heart. Just like my video on the love of my life, Alfred. And actually, like Alfred, if you throw yourself into this by watching this video and following along, it will change your life. The reason I love Ticktick is that it's simple, there's no bloat, but it's powerful enough to handle every use case that you can think of. As an online coach, it's particularly useful for keeping you on track because it'll always remind you of, am I getting leads, closing sales, coaching clients, or building the system? And if you're not doing any of those things, you're probably wasting your time. Anyway, let's get started. So I recommend that you follow along with me here. You can get a trial version with the link below. We also have a discount code, but to be honest, the free version has more than enough to get a feel for it. However, I should say about price and paying for software in general is that as a business owner, you really have to start valuing your time. You only have to go on Reddit to see a bunch of people that don't value their time and refuse to pay for anything, and look at how they turned out. So just bear that in mind. Ticktick is so cheap, and there's no way that your life is so precisely optimized that you can't justify £2 a month for a massive improvement in your productivity. So download the native version of Ticktick on your Mac, on your phone, and you know what, even for my beautiful PC friends out there, I know one day you'll see the light, but in the meantime, there's a PC version too. So there we go. So this is actually the web version because I've got a demo account up here to try and show you what it's like to set up from scratch. Let's start simple and then we can progress onto the more advanced features. So step 1 could be everything that you need. Build as you go along, and really this is the best way to build any system. Gall's law, so that states that you're better off building a functional thing from the start. Keep it simple, so begin with the skateboard and gradually add bits, rather than trying to build a car, like being dropped into a complex system, but beginning at a single wheel and then a chassis and all this stuff, because none of those intermediate steps are functional. So this is why I'm not just dropping you into the middle of a complex system, because it's not going to make much sense to you, and some of it might be redundant for you as well. This is the general anatomy of what Ticktick looks like. So on the left, you've got the sidebar. These are different views for what you need to do today, over the next 7 days, and your inbox. And then you've got lists. Here is the task list, and then on the right is the description of those tasks. So if we put in a task here, you can see that we can add a description into there. We can set the due date, we can set when we want a reminder for it, if we want to repeat the action, so let's say every week, and how often we want to repeat it until. And then you can also do things like snooze it for next month, next week. There's keyboard shortcuts and all that stuff too, and you can set the duration of them as well. So pretty straightforward. And then here you can set the priority, and this determines the color of the task and how high it shows on your list as well. The other thing is you can convert a description into subtasks. So subtask 2, subtask 3, etc. And then you can change the due date for those subtasks as well. And then this really becomes a project because it's got multiple tasks inside it. The other way is you can add a subtask in here and then you can drag it into there, move it along. There we go. And now that's become part of this Big Daddy task. So this is the inbox. This is just the general dumping ground for any new things that come into your mind. And before we start adding tasks, I just want to remind you of the process of capture, review, and do. That's the 3-part process of any productivity system. So you need a way to capture new things coming onto your desk. You need a way to review them and put them into the right sequence so that you know when you're going to do them. And then you need a way to put the blinkers on and do them. So before we start capturing, we need somewhere to put them. So here I've set up 2 example lists. So we've got business and we've got personal. You can create as many lists as you want, basically, that relate to different domains of your life. So let's stick with these 2 for now, keep it simple. And now, when we go to capture stuff, we can say, buy a new E10 light bulb on Tuesday, 2 p.m. And you can see how it picks up the time and the date. So if I press enter, that automatically allocates it, and you'll see on Tuesday, it's already in my calendar as a time slot. So we have those lists. The other thing you can do is add tags. So for example, home improvement, or you could do urgent or something like that. The possibilities are endless. The reason that there's a difference between a tag and a list is that a tag can span different lists, whereas a list is discrete and exclusive. Again, don't get bogged down with this. Keep it simple. I tend not to use tags that much apart from next up. That's the only one that I use so that I can just quickly filter by what's the next biggest alligator at the boat and do that. The other way, there's infinite ways you can shuffle this, and this is why I love Ticktick. You can do that by priority instead, but personally I use the priority tags for something a bit different, which I can show you in the fancy advanced material. So the point is, don't follow some productivity guru's special setup for Ticktick. Do what feels natural to you and keep it simple. If you want to use lists or tags or priority, whatever, this is all up to you. This is your blank canvas to play with. They're all just different ways of prioritizing and creating the buckets. So don't get bogged down with this. You can then create your own tags and filters and smart lists and all that stuff if you want to get fancy. Now, we've mentioned capture, review, and do. So let's start with capture. I mentioned this natural language thing. This is super helpful. So a couple of keyboard shortcuts that are worth remembering are, you could say, on Tuesday, and then that adds the timestamp. You can then do Shift 6, which is the list. So you can say business. You can do @ and tag somebody who's in a shared list with you. And then you can do hash for the tag. So next up is one of my favorites. And then you can also do exclamation mark for high, medium, or low priority. Remember to make a distinction between a task and a project. So taxes is not a task. That's a project. Instead, a task would be go to gov.uk, download P60 form at 2 p.m. And then you might want to say, fill in form and submit to Alan. Alan's a very accountant name, at 2:30 p.m. So there we can see it's picked up the date, and now we can maybe take both of these and put them under taxes. There we go. And then as you're going through taxes, you can even create a little progress bar like that. 60% done. Delightful. Final 2 things about capture. So the first one is very cool. If you press Command-Shift-O, you can pull this up from anywhere. So you can be in the middle of something else and you can say, buy some lemons, 6 p.m. Shopping. There we go. Now, 6 p.m, that'll pop up. The other thing to mention is don't put articles and podcasts and videos and that kind of thing into Ticktick. They're not really tasks, they're more a queue of things to read. So have a look at my video on Readwise for that, which is this tool. It's absolutely fantastic. It allows you to do all the highlights and reading and stuff into a dedicated app that then get sent into your second brain. So keep this as a task manager, not as a reading queue. So we've covered capture, now on to review. So there's multiple ways you can do this. You can either go to a specific list, you can go to your today inbox and see what's overdue. You can maybe postpone everything in one go. You can use keyboard shortcuts like Command 1, 2, and 3 to send something to today, tomorrow, or next week. So that's one way that you can look through everything that's due or overdue and see what to do. My favourite way of doing this is through the calendar. So we can see here, these are the tasks that we've got on today. We've got a couple of overlapping things, which is bad practice. So we might want to separate out the tasks and move them around. And maybe just give ourselves a bit of a buffer as well, so we're not just slammed from task to task. Now, this is the really cool part. We can go to Arrange Tasks and then say, let's drag this from business into here. Now we're creating a little appointment with ourselves of create landing page on Thursday at 2:45. So the review process is brilliant for that. We can also open up a mini calendar and say, oh, actually, let's move that to the 3rd of May. And we can also filter by just the business or just the inbox tasks that we need to do on our calendar. There's a few other ways you can view things as well. So you can view them by Kanban. So you can say, for example, in progress, if I can spell, there we are. You can drag that across. And then that can be to be reviewed, something like that. And then you can see how very quickly you can get an overview of where you're at. So I use this kind of method loads for content planning, because then I have things that are, let's say, an idea. Let's just show you how that would look. So we could have idea, scripted, recorded, published. And then you could maybe say guide to Ticktick, and then drag things along as they're taking shape. And then you can put in the script in here. So that's lovely. Allows us to have this big overview and manage a workflow pretty easily with the review process. If you're using an iPhone, I would recommend setting the home screen to the day view, and it'll give you a kind of live timeline of what the active task is right now and what's coming up next. So those are the different views. You can also see things as a timeline. So this is like a Gantt chart, and the Gantt chart, which you can see like this, and that gives you a way to see either the sections or where they're at in time as well. And you can zoom in and out with that. You can view it by day or week. So that's quite good for seeing big picture projects with lots of little sub parts that maybe have dependencies for the other stuff. So we've covered capture and review and some different ways that you can view the tasks and maybe do a weekly review throughout the week. So personally, I quite like to have on a Sunday evening, Ticktick review. And you can say that's weekly as well. So that repeats every week. And then it means that you can go through 4:30 every week and just run through everything that's overdue, have a look on the today list, see what needs to be done, allocate stuff, maybe go to the calendar, go to the arranged tasks list, and plan out your week like this. Lovely. If you're starting out with this and you're not sure what to put in here, you will have much more stuff than you think. So have a look at the David Allen Mind Sweep or Brain Dump. This is a real clearing out the pipes of all the stuff that you need to do. So have a look through this. It'll go through all the different aspects of your life. And the idea is sit down for 40 minutes and just bash through all this stuff. And it will be a huge relief, because then you're getting all these little kind of open loops in your head down on paper. You can then allocate them a time. You know what to do. You don't have to be thinking about them. Free up a huge amount of mental bandwidth. So you know your capture process, you've done a brain dump, you're able to categorize and prioritize tasks now. You're using the arranged tasks feature. You might want to use the Eisenhower matrix. So I'm a big fan of this. This just allows you to organize things by urgency or importance. I've got another video on that. I don't want to make this too long, but if you are a big fan of the Eisenhower matrix or you want to learn more about how this works, take a look at the video. The main point is that we tend to stick in the left side of our lives, the stuff that's urgent and important, and the stuff that's urgent but unimportant. And really, the stuff that really drives your business forward and the real juicy stuff in your personal growth is in the top right. It's the stuff that's not urgent, but it is important. And if you skip it today, there's no immediate consequence. But if you skip it every week for the next year, your life stagnates. And that's a really scary thought. So look at what is important but not urgent and schedule it in so it actually gets done. So we've nailed capture and review. Now we're on to an exciting part, and we're going to go back to my laptop and phone, and I'm going to show you some great ways to enter deep focus using Ticktick. Oh hey, look at this. There's me on the big screen. How exciting is that? So, right, this is my standard desk setup. So I've got the monitor here, laptop here, and look at this. Careful not to pull everything off the table when I do this. I can flip this out to there. So what I tend to do with Ticktick is I've got this as my home screen. So this is the today view, and this is all the task that I'm currently doing right now, which is recording. So I can just stick that onto there, and then look, if I go to this, I can say set the timer for this task. It sets a timer. If I want to, I can add in some nice sounds. So there we go. There's the constant reminder that while I'm doing a task, you have this pointing at you saying, this is the thing that you should be working on right now. So it's the equivalent to that guy who paid an assistant to slap him every time he went off task by switching windows. The other option, obviously, is the old school method of this. If you're more of an analog boy, you can use an hourglass timer to achieve the same effect. So there we go. We've covered capture, review, and do. And I want to just go through some extra features, some cool little hacks you can do to just add some icing on your Ticktick cake and make this all come together really nicely. So the first thing is make sure that you time box as much as possible. So what I mean by that is setting out a block of time in your calendar to go through a task and make it as granular and specific as possible for the subtasks. So you'll have probably seen the great calendar versus to-do list debate on our channel. It's got almost 200 views at this point. It's iconic. Basically, the idea is that any task should really be interchangeable with an event on your calendar because tasks take time to do. So when I'm in the review process, I very much like to use the arrange tasks feature in the calendar. So having the list of tasks on the right side, maybe filtering by list if I'm working on a particular project, and just dragging them over to the calendar so that you're like, okay, this is how this indeterminate, invertebrate list of things is going to become reality.
Supine protoplasmic invertebrate jellies.
By blocking out time on the calendar. Otherwise, it doesn't get done. The same way as you would say to your clients, you've got to arrange a date with yourself to go to the gym at 6 p.m. on Thursday. Otherwise, you won't go because things will just get in the way. And so because of my philosophical stance on tasks and calendar events, Ticktick is perfect for that because it sees them as interchangeable. And no other apps really do that, apart from maybe Akiflow and some new ones that haven't quite gained traction yet. So there's how it's all put into practice. Now, I promised you some icing on the cake. So here we go. The first one, we've covered the pomodoro timer. The great thing about this is that it handles pomodoros in custom lengths, and you can set the break time at the end, and then it adds all that stuff to your stats. The stats part is really exciting, and Johnny is the absolute master of this, so I'm going to show a screenshot of his stats for Ticktick, where he divides tasks into the various sub-machines in the business, so that he can see where is most of the time being spent.
So this is the stats page inside Ticktick, and you can see there's a few different views that I find useful. So the first thing I'd recommend, by the way, before you start tracking anything, is categorize your tasks into folders. So if you categorize them into folders, when you come to look at the stats, you'll be able to see things in a much more granular way. Rather than just like tasks complete, you'll be able to see like exactly which tasks were complete and what you worked on. This is, for example, an overview. This is how many pomodoros I've done today, how many tasks I've done, the total number of tasks I've done, the total number of pomodoros I've done. It gives you a score and then a completion curve, which is how many of the tasks you were scheduled to do that day did you actually do. And you can filter this by month and week and all that sort of stuff and see how your completion rate changes over time. This is your pomodoro curve. If you want to use the habits as well, tracks your habits. And this is how many pomodoros you've done. It's like 17, 16 hours, 12 hours. I don't really use this tab, to be honest, but it's quite cool from a visual perspective. Tasks, very useful. So this is how many tasks I've done versus last week, how many of them I completed versus how many I scheduled. And then the most useful thing is where I spend my time, like what category are these tasks from. So admin, finance, email marketing, ads management. This is just this week. You can change it to last week, for example. I can change it to monthly, and you can just get a really good sense of, rather than thinking, all I do is this sort of task. You can actually see where your tasks are from. Same with Pomodoros. It tells you where your Pomodoros are focused on. So if you go to month, for example, 15 hours of time spent on ads management, this is for this month, and sales, unclassified, so that's naughty me. Should have classified those tasks. See the mess you get into if you don't classify things. Email marketing, things that I didn't move out my inbox, which is also a problem, naughty me. Admin, coaching, and this also gives you like a trend, your year as a heat map, your week as a heat map, and then when in the day you tend to do most of your Pomodoros. I already know the answer to this, but generally speaking, it's like first thing in the morning. So as you can see, my productivity basically declines linearly throughout the day. So knowing that, like having a chart that tells you that, very useful. So that is how I use Ticktick stats. The key is categorize your tasks properly. And when you come to do a Pomodoro, make sure you select the task you're about to do. So make sure you pick like, okay, for this 25-minute block, I am going to work, or you can customize that time as well, by the way. But for this block of work, I am going to work on this. And you can pick it from your today view, your drop-down view of what's scheduled for the day. That I think helps with productivity immensely anyway, because it sets this intentionality. And then if you deviate, it's like, well, I was supposed to be doing this. When you come back to review the day at the end, you can see what you were trying to do and what you ended up doing. It's sort of a bit of a self-correction as well. So make sure you categorize tasks, make sure you pick from the list what you're going to be doing that day before you start.
That gives you a great idea of focus distribution, because one thing that I find with things like email is that they take up a huge amount of mental bandwidth. They have a high attention cost, but they might not have a very high time cost. But because of the attention cost being high, we feel like we spend a lot more time doing email than we actually do. So that's one example. And when you have the cold hard stats to say, this is where my focus is being distributed, it's really helpful. The next cool feature is location-based reminders. So I have a list of people who are in various cities. I've got bros in different area codes. And so as I'm approaching 20-mile radius of a particular city, I will get location-based reminders saying, hey, get in touch with this person, let them know that you're in town. Next is the home screen widget on your phone. This should just be front and center on your phone, because this is the task that is happening right now. So it shows you what's happening now and what's happening next, and you can click through to it and begin the Pomodoro. So a couple more hidden gems with Ticktick. So there's recurring reminders, and you can set the reminder time at a different point to the due date. There's also the habit tracker, and the way they've designed this is so satisfying. Lots of little perks over the app where you click ba-ding, and it's like you tick off the thing and it's like, oh, that was satisfying. There's lots of that stuff, and that's yes, I know it's childish, but this stuff helps you to stay consistent with habits. And then you can build the streak and all that stuff too. So it's got a built-in habit tracker. The next feature that's really cool is the Tinder style interface that you can do for the day. So if you feel like your tasks are getting on top of you, you can go through the Tinder and basically swipe right, swipe left to snooze, allocate, do today, delete, whatever, with tasks basically as a pile of cards. So you can finally get back on top of things if you've had a chaotic week where you're like, oh, I need to just clear the decks again. Ticktick does have a notes feature, and you could basically use it as your entire second brain if you wanted to. I tend just to use it as tasks because I like to keep tasks and notes as separate spaces entirely. I don't think they should really merge, because basically a task isn't something that you want permanently in your archive. It's something that's transient. Buy milk on Tuesday. You don't want that to be forever embedded into your second brain, but it's there as a feature if you wanted to have everything under one roof. Final couple of things. So there's the team features. So if you're working collaboratively on a project with someone, you can allocate each other tasks. You can comment on the tasks and tag each other in certain subtasks and notes and things. So it allows for a really great tool for project management. And actually the simplicity of it makes it far better for me than a lot of these bloated project management apps. If you're using the Kanban board as well, everyone can keep track of who's up to what stage in a particular project. So it's really great for that. There's a couple of things that I like to set up my Ticktick for. So I have a social calendar. I'll do a separate video on this, but you can set basically a cadence that you want to see certain friends to keep on top of that and stop being such a rubbish friend. And also, I have a list, or you can use a tag for this, called waiting for. I've got a whole bunch of stuff where the ball is in someone else's court and I'm waiting for a response. But if I'm not keeping track of it, it could very easily get forgotten. So it's a waiting for tag that I might set a time for, or maybe not. I'll just sweep through it once every month or so of like, oh yeah, I need to chase that person to do this. Finally, get used to the keyboard shortcuts with Ticktick. So when you're in the calendar view, you can press D, W, and M to rapidly switch between day, week, and month, or you can use 1, 2, and 3. I have a shortcut for Start Pomodoro, which is Shift Command P, and that just starts a pomodoro of the currently active task wherever I am. And then that gets put into your stats and so on. There's a couple of things that Ticktick lacks the keyboard shortcuts for, so I've just set up Better Touch tool customizations for that. For example, opening the calendar view from wherever I am, or opening up the Arrange Tasks feature from a keyboard shortcut. The reason I get so excited about keyboard shortcuts, so lame, is because they are stuff that you do thousands of times a day. So when you can do them a little bit quicker, it just eliminates that micro friction and makes you more efficient, stops any of those little leaks for distraction. So, takeaway points for using Ticktick. Keep it simple. Don't trust productivity perverts, because the rabbit hole can go really deep with any app, particularly things like Notion and stuff where it's like blank canvas. Remember why you're using the app in the first place. It's to get stuff done. It's not to build a new hobby of learning a new app. Remember what the wise old owl said. Second main takeaway is time boxing. Make sure you have a proper capture process, and make sure you do a weekly review to keep things tidy. So have a look at my full productivity playlist if you haven't seen that already. It's the last resource on productivity that you'll ever need, and I will speak to you soon.